The Declaration. The Orion Collective had existed for 8,000 years. 5 species had bound themselves together in an alliance that stretched across 400 star systems. The Velkrin brought their industrial might. The Ash Era contributed scientific brilliance. The Morphids provided biological engineering. The Zenthari offered military precision. The Quillen supplied diplomatic cunning. Together they had shaped a corner of the galaxy according to their vision. They had absorbed smaller civilizations. They had exploited resource-rich worlds. They had created a hierarchy where each species knew its place. At the top stood the 5 founding races. Below them existed dozens of client species who served in exchange for protection. At the bottom lived the servant-class beings who worked in mines and factories and farms across collective space. The Grand Assembly convened on Velcros Prime, the administrative heart of the collective. The chamber was an architectural marvel built from crystallized starlight harvested from dying suns. 5 elevated platforms ringed a central space where holographic displays could materialize. Each platform held the representative of a founding species. Consul Draven of the Velkrin called the session to order. His species resembled massive bears crossed with insects, their bodies covered in chitinous plates beneath thick fur. For arms extended from his torso, each one capable of crushing steel. His voice rumbled through translation devices that rendered his words into every language spoken in collective space. "We have detected a species of interest in the outer spiral region," Draven said. "Initial surveys indicate they call themselves humans. They occupy 12 systems with a total population approaching 15 billion. Preliminary analysis suggests they would serve admirably in agricultural and light manufacturing roles." Scientist Prime Valera of the Ash Era studied the data streaming across her personal display. The Ash Era were beings of pure energy contained within crystalline forms that glowed with inner light. Her species viewed physical matter as merely one state of existence among many. "These humans appear remarkably adaptable," Valera observed. "They have established colonies on worlds ranging from frozen ice planets to desert environments. Their genetic structure allows for significant environmental tolerance. This is valuable." General Kethros of the Zenthari leaned forward on his platform. The Zenthari were reptilian warriors who had evolved on a high-gravity world where only the strong survived. Scales the color of polished obsidian covered his body. His eyes were vertical slits that missed nothing. "What of their military capability?" he asked. "Have they shown any resistance to previous contacts?" "There have been no previous contacts," Draven replied. "Our survey probes operated in stealth mode. The humans do not know we have observed them. As for military capability, they possess approximately 400 vessels capable of interstellar combat. Their technology level is roughly equivalent to what the collective possessed 2,000 years ago. Primitive but not entirely helpless." Ambassador Thyss of the Quillen made a dismissive gesture with one of her 6 tentacles. The Quillen were aquatic beings who existed in environmental suits filled with pressurized liquid when outside their native oceans. They had developed manipulation and deception into high art forms over millennia. 400 ships against our tens of thousands," Thyss said through her suit speakers. "Their technology is ancient by our standards. I see no reason to classify them as anything other than servant class. We have absorbed stronger species with less effort." Bioengineer Morpheus of the Morphids remained silent. His species had abandoned fixed physical forms long ago. Morpheus currently inhabited a body that resembled a humanoid figure made from living clay that constantly shifted and reformed. The Morphids could become anything they chose, though they rarely chose to participate in assembly debates unless the topic directly concerned biological matters. Draven brought up a holographic image of a human being. Male, average height, bipedal form with bilateral symmetry. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Internal skeleton supporting musculature. No natural weapons beyond basic physical strength. No venom, no armored skin, no enhanced sensory organs. Yet they have spread across 12 systems in less than 2 centuries, Valera said. That suggests either remarkable determination or considerable intelligence. Possibly both. Does this change their classification? Draven asked. The Ash Era scientist considered. Intelligence makes them more useful, not less. They will understand instructions. They will operate complex machinery. They will require less supervision than truly primitive beings. I recommend we proceed with servant class designation. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was officially classified as a servant species under collective law. Their worlds would be incorporated. Their population would be distributed across collective facilities where labor was needed. Those who cooperated would be treated with basic decency. Those who resisted would learn the futility of opposing the collective. The decision was made with the same casual efficiency the collective applied to all such matters. It was not personal. It was not cruel by their standards. It was simply the natural order of things. Strong species took what they needed from weak species. This was how the galaxy worked. 3 weeks later, Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Call and watched the Velcro's prime grow larger on her viewscreen. She was 42 years old with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen too many negotiations go wrong. She had spent 20 years in Earth's diplomatic corps. She had brokered mining agreements with the colonies. She had mediated disputes between corporate interests. She had talked desperate people out of violent choices more times than she could count. This assignment was different. This was first contact with an alien civilization that had sent unmanned probes into human space without permission. That had studied humanity without introducing themselves. That had now requested a diplomatic meeting without explaining why. Captain Torres sat in the command chair behind Elena. She was younger, barely 30, but she had piloted relief missions through asteroid fields and navigated damaged ships through solar storms. Her hands moved across her console with practiced ease. "They are directing us to dock at Station 7. Torres reported. "It is one of their diplomatic facilities. Scans show approximately 10,000 life forms aboard representing multiple species. Standard diplomatic hub by the looks of it. Any weapons signatures?" Elena asked. "Nothing pointed at us," Torres replied. "But the station has enough firepower to reduce us to atoms if they choose. There are also 47 warships within immediate response range. We are very much at their mercy if this goes badly." Elena nodded slowly. She had reviewed everything Earth's intelligence services had gathered about the Orion Collective. It was not much. Long-range observations of their territory. Analysis of their probe technology. Intercepted communications that had taken years to partially decode. What they knew painted a picture of a powerful civilization that viewed itself as the rightful authority over this region of space. What they did not know could fill libraries. The Horizon's Call docked without incident. Elena and her small team were escorted through the station by Zenthari guards who towered over them. The guards said nothing. They simply walked ahead and behind, ensuring the humans stayed on the designated path. Other beings watched them pass. Some showed curiosity. Others showed contempt. A few showed what might have been pity. The assembly chamber doors opened. Elena stepped inside and felt her breath catch despite her years of training. The crystallized starlight walls sparkled with colors that should not exist. The 5 platforms held beings so alien that her mind struggled to process them. This was the reality of the universe made manifest. Humanity was not alone. Humanity was not unique. Humanity was standing before powers that had shaped the stars while humans were still learning to make fire. Elena walked to the center of the chamber. She wore her formal uniform with its insignia of Earth and the United Colonial Authority. She carried no weapons. She had only a small data device and the words she had prepared. Consul Drajan spoke first. "Commander Vasquez of the species called humanity. You have been granted audience before the Grand Assembly of the Orion Collective. This is a privilege extended to few. You will listen carefully to what we tell you." Elena bowed slightly. "Honored members of the Assembly. I come as a representative of humanity. We are grateful for this opportunity to establish peaceful relations between our peoples. We hope this meeting marks the beginning of a long friendship." "There will be no friendship," Drajan said flatly. "The collective has evaluated your species. We have determined your classification under collective law. You have been designated as servant-class beings. Your worlds will be incorporated into collective space. Your population will be distributed to facilities where labor is required. This process will begin immediately." The words hung in the air like poison. Elena felt ice spread through her chest. She had prepared for many scenarios. Territorial disputes. Trade negotiations. Cultural misunderstandings. She had not prepared for this. "We are a sovereign species," Elena said carefully. "We have harmed no one. We have committed no offense against the collective. On what grounds do you claim authority over us?" "On the grounds that we possess the power to do so," General Kethros replied. "Your species is weak. Your technology is primitive. You have nothing we cannot take by force if necessary. It is more efficient if you accept your new status peacefully. But the choice is yours to make." Elena's mind raced. Everything in her training screamed at her to stay calm, to find common ground, to negotiate. But there was nothing to negotiate. The collective was not making demands. They were announcing a decision already made. "I must refuse your claim," Elena said. Her voice did not shake. "Humanity will not accept classification as servants. We will not surrender our worlds or our people. We ask that you reconsider this action. If you cannot reconsider, then we ask that you leave human space and do not return." THYSS made a sound that might have been laughter. "You ask us to leave?" Small creature, we could exterminate your entire species before your sun rises tomorrow on your home world. You have 400 primitive ships. We have fleets that number in the thousands. You have colonies that struggle to feed themselves. We have industrial complexes that span entire solar systems. You are insects demanding that giants respect their territory. Elena met the ambassador's eyes through the environmental suit's transparent section. Then let me be clear. If you attempt to enslave humanity, we will resist. Every human colony will fight. Every ship we possess will engage your forces. We may lose. We probably will lose. But we will make you pay for every world, every ship, every life you take from us. You will learn that enslaving humanity costs more than it is worth. Drajan stood from his platform. His massive form cast shadows across the chamber floor. You have courage. I acknowledge this. But courage without power is meaningless. The collective fleet will arrive at your outer colonies in 30 days. Your people will be collected. Those who cooperate will be treated fairly within their new roles. Those who resist will be subdued with whatever force is necessary. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification of reality. The meeting ended. Elena and her team were escorted back to their ship. No one spoke during the walk. There was nothing to say. When the Horizon's call undocked and set course for human space, Elena finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had happened. Humanity had reached the stars and found nightmares waiting. She activated her long-range communicator. The message would take hours to reach Earth, but it had to be sent immediately. This is Commander Vasquez to Colonial Authority Command. First contact has occurred. Result negative. The Orion Collective has declared humanity a servant-class species. They intend to incorporate our worlds and enslave our population. Their invasion fleet launches in 30 days. We have no time for diplomacy. Recommend immediate activation of Nightfall Protocol. Repeat, activate Nightfall Protocol. She closed the channel and stared at the stars beyond her viewport. Somewhere out there, humanity's colonies went about their daily lives not knowing that everything was about to change. Children played in parks under alien suns. Families gathered for meals. Workers built new homes on new worlds. All of it was about to be torn apart by forces they could not resist with conventional means. But humanity had not been unprepared. For 200 years since the first probe signals were detected, since the first hints that humanity was not alone reached Earth, plans had been made. Resources had been diverted. Research had been conducted in facilities that officially did not exist. Project Nightfall had consumed trillions in funding and the lives of thousands of scientists and engineers who worked in absolute secrecy. Now their work would be tested. On Earth, in a facility buried 3 kilometers beneath the Arctic ice, lights began turning on for the first time in decades. Massive engines that had never been fired started their initialization sequences. Weapon systems that existed in no official database began charging. Ships that had been built in the darkness of deep space started receiving activation codes. Admiral Marcus Kane stood in the central command center and watched status boards light up green across the entire facility. He was 70 years old with gray hair and a face lined by decades of keeping the most dangerous secret in human history. Around him, officers moved with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment. They had sacrificed normal lives, normal careers, normal families to be ready for this moment. Now it was here. The Nightfall Protocol was active. The message from Commander Vasquez had traveled faster than light using quantum entanglement communicators that the collective did not know humanity possessed. The full report was now being analyzed by Earth's leadership. Within hours, the decision was made. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would not become servants. Humanity would show the Orion Collective exactly what happened when they underestimated a species that had spent 2 centuries preparing for this exact scenario. Admiral Kane opened a channel to every Nightfall facility across the solar system and beyond. All stations, this is Kane. We are go for full deployment. Execute Phase 1. Show them what we really are. In the outer colonies, the first collective ships arrived ahead of the main fleet. They were scout vessels meant to assess defenses and identify optimal landing zones for collection operations. The colony of New Terra was their first target. New Terra held 2 million humans who had built a thriving society on a world of vast oceans and scattered island continents. They had farms and factories. They had schools and hospitals. They had children who had never seen Earth but still called themselves human. The collective scouts descended through the atmosphere with their shields active and weapons ready. They expected resistance. They expected the colony's small defense force to make a token effort before being overwhelmed. What they found was a colony that had evacuated its population centers. Empty cities greeted them. Silent streets. Abandoned vehicles. It took the scouts 3 hours to locate the humans. They had gathered in the central continent's interior, far from any cities or industrial facilities. 2 million people standing in massive groups in open fields. The collective scouts approached cautiously. This made no sense. Why gather in the open where collection would be easier? Where were the weapons? Where were the defenses? The answer came from above. Satellites that had been launched by New Terra over the past decade suddenly activated. They had been dismissed by collective observers as primitive communication relays. They were not communication relays. They were weapons platforms using technology the collective did not recognize. Beams of coherent energy lanced down from orbit. They passed through the collective ship's shields without slowing. They punched through armor plating like it was paper. They struck power cores with surgical precision. 4 scout ships died in the first 10 seconds. The remaining 3 attempted to flee. They accelerated toward orbit at maximum speed. They never made it. More beams reached out from the satellites. More ships died. New Terra's sky lit up with explosions as alien vessels disintegrated. On the ground, 2 million humans watched their enemy burn. Then they began to move back to their cities. They had work to do. They had to prepare for what was coming next. Similar scenes played out across every human colony. The collective's advanced scouts were destroyed before they could send detailed reports. A few managed brief transmissions. Warnings about unknown weapons. Confusion about human capabilities. Then silence. On Velcros Prime, Consul Drajan received the reports with growing concern. Something was wrong. The humans should not have been able to destroy experienced scout crews. Their technology was supposed to be primitive. He ordered the main invasion fleet to halt while the situation was assessed. General Kethros disagreed. This changes nothing. He argued in an emergency assembly session. Perhaps the humans have developed some new weapons. Perhaps they purchased technology from another species we have not detected. It does not matter. Our fleet consists of 8,000 ships. Even if they destroyed every scout, that is a handful of losses against overwhelming force. We proceed as planned. The assembly voted. 7 members in favor of proceeding. Only the Morphids abstained. Bioengineer Morpheus had said nothing during the debate, but his constantly shifting form had stilled when the scout reports were played. Something about the humans troubled him. Something about their response did not match what a primitive species should be capable of. But he was outvoted. The decision was made. The collective invasion fleet resumed its course toward human space. 8,000 warships carrying enough firepower to crack planets. Troop transports holding hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Support vessels loaded with equipment to establish collection facilities and processing centers. It was the largest military operation the collective had launched in 500 years. Against a species of 15 billion spread across 12 worlds, it should have been more than sufficient. The fleet crossed into human territory 3 days later. They detected no resistance. No human ships rose to challenge them. The colonies appeared to be waiting for the inevitable. General Kethros commanded the operation from the dreadnought Eternal Triumph. He stood on his bridge surrounded by tactical displays showing the positions of every ship in his fleet. The formation was perfect. The approach was textbook. Victory was assured. Target the first colony world. Kethros ordered. Deploy collection forces. Pacify any resistance. We will process each world in sequence until all humans are secured. The fleet moved toward New Terra. They entered orbit in tight formation with shields at maximum and weapons charged. They prepared to deploy their ground forces. That was when the stars changed. All around the collective fleet, space itself seemed to tear open. Ruptures appeared in reality, doorways to somewhere else. Through those doorways came ships. Human ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. They poured into normal space like a flood breaking through a dam. They were not the primitive vessels the collective had observed. These ships were sleek and deadly. Their hulls were black as the void between stars. Energy readings from them made collective sensors scream warnings about impossible power outputs. They moved with grace and speed that violated known laws of physics. They arranged themselves in formations that surrounded the entire collective fleet. And they waited. General Kethros stared at the display showing thousands of unknown contacts. His tactical officers were shouting reports that made no sense. How did they get here? He demanded. How did they hide this many ships? Where did they come from? No one had answers. The human fleet had appeared from nowhere. They had somehow opened passages through space itself. They possessed technology that should not exist. Kethros felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. Open a channel. He ordered. I will speak with whoever commands these vessels. A view screen activated. A human male appeared. He was old with gray hair and hard eyes. He wore a black uniform with silver insignia. When he spoke, his voice was calm and absolutely certain. I am Admiral Marcus Kane of the Earth Defense Forces. You have entered human space with hostile intent. You have declared your intention to enslave our species. You have attacked our scout vessels and destroyed our advance forces. These actions constitute acts of war. The Orion Collective rejects your claim to sovereignty. General Kethros replied. We do not recognize your authority. We do not accept your military capability as legitimate. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Admiral Kane smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. You still do not understand. Let me show you what you are dealing with. He made a gesture off-screen. Every human ship fired simultaneously. Beams of pure energy reached out across the darkness. They struck collective shields and burned through them like they were made of tissue. They punched into hulls and detonated power cores. They sliced through armor and vaporized crew compartments. In 30 seconds, 500 collective ships were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The human weapons fell silent. 7,500 ships remained of the invasion fleet. All of them hung in space with damaged shields and burning hulls. None of them had managed to return fire. None of them had even locked weapons on the human vessels. The demonstration was over. Now, Admiral Kane said. Let us discuss the terms of your surrender. The reckoning. General Kethros could not speak. His bridge crew stood frozen at their stations. Alarms blared from every damaged system on the Eternal Triumph. 500 ships had died in 30 seconds. 500 crews vaporized before they could even understand what was happening. The human fleet hung in space like patient predators waiting for prey to make a wrong move. Admiral Kane's face remained on the viewscreen. His expression showed no triumph, no anger, only cold determination. You have 3 minutes to power down your weapons and surrender. Kane said. Any ship that fails to comply will be destroyed. Any ship that attempts to flee will be destroyed. Any ship that fires on my forces will cause the immediate destruction of your entire fleet. Choose wisely. Kethros felt his combat instincts warring with his survival instincts. Every training program, every battle doctrine, every tactical manual told him to fight. The Zenthari did not surrender. The Zenthari did not flee. But the Zenthari also did not charge into certain annihilation. He had just watched weapons technology that was centuries beyond anything the collective possessed. He had watched shields that had never failed before collapse like soap bubbles. He had watched his fleet get butchered without landing a single hit in return. His communication officer spoke quietly. Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from 200 vessels. They are requesting permission to stand down. More are joining them. The fleet is breaking. Kethros closed his eyes. In that moment, he understood what Commander Vasquez had tried to tell the assembly. Humanity had been hiding its true capabilities. Everything the collective had observed was a lie. Every probe scan, every intelligence assessment, every tactical analysis had been fed false information. The humans had allowed themselves to be studied. They had presented themselves as weak. They had waited for someone to make exactly the mistake the collective had made. Power down all weapons. Kethros ordered. The words tasted like poison. Disengage shields. Transmit surrender codes to the human fleet. The bridge crew hesitated. The order went against every instinct. But they obeyed. Across the collective fleet, weapons powered down. Shields collapsed. Ships that had entered human space ready for conquest now hung helpless waiting for judgment. Admiral Kane nodded slightly. Wise choice. Your fleet will remain in this position. Any movement will be interpreted as hostile action. We will now discuss terms. First, you will immediately release all human prisoners held anywhere in collective space. Second, you will provide us with the locations of every facility holding our people. Third, you will compensate us for the damage done to our colonies and the lives lost during your attacks. Fourth, you will withdraw all collective presence from human space and establish a neutral zone of 500 light-years between our territories. These terms are not negotiable. Kethros found his voice. The Assembly will never accept these terms. We are the Orion Collective. We do not pay tribute to lesser species. Admiral Kane's expression hardened. You are the Orion Collective. Past tense. Your fleet is captured. Your military capability in this region is broken. And we are just beginning. He made another gesture off-screen. New images appeared on Kethros's displays. They showed human fleets positioned above every collective home world. Velcros Prime was surrounded by 500 human vessels. Ashera Central had 1,000 human ships in orbit. Morphid Prime, Zenthari Fortress, Quillan Deep, all of them were under human guns. When did this happen? Kethros whispered. How did you move this many ships without detection? We have been preparing for this moment for 200 years. Kane replied. Since the first time we detected signals from your space. Since we realized we were not alone and that what was out there might not be friendly. We built a fleet in secret. We developed technology in hidden facilities. We created weapons that could fight enemies we had never seen. And we waited. We waited for someone to threaten us. Someone to attack us. Someone to give us justification for what we are about to do. You gave us that justification. The general felt ice spreading through his body. What are you about to do? Admiral Kane was silent for a moment. Then he spoke words that would echo through collective space for generations. We are going to show the galaxy what happens when you mistake human patience for human weakness. On Velcros Prime, Consul Drajan stood in the assembly chamber and watched the human fleet surrounding his world. Each ship was a black dagger pointed at the heart of collective power. His communication systems were flooded with reports from other assembly members. They were all saying the same thing. Human fleets had appeared simultaneously above every home world. Human forces were demanding immediate access to labor facilities holding human prisoners. Human commanders were broadcasting ultimatums that gave the collective no choice but to comply or face orbital bombardment. This is impossible, Drajan said to the empty chamber. No species could have hidden this level of military development. Our probes watched them for decades. We saw everything. A holographic image materialized in the chamber. It showed Admiral Kane sitting in what appeared to be a command center filled with tactical displays. You saw what we chose to show you, Kane said. Our real ships were built on the dark side of our moon where your probes never looked. Our real weapons were tested in deep space using technology that prevented detection. Our real military trained in facilities buried beneath our planet's surfaces. Everything you observed was theater designed to make you underestimate us. Drajan felt something like respect mixing with his fear. Why? If you possess this capability, why hide it? Why not make peaceful contact and establish relations as equals? Because we did not know if you would be peaceful, Kane replied. We detected your communications. We studied your history. We learned about the dozens of species you had absorbed. We saw how you treated those you classified as servants. We understood that revealing our true strength too early might make you see us as threats rather than victims. So we waited. We let you believe we were weak. We let you make the first move. Now we hold all the advantages. Drajan's analytical mind processed this rapidly. You planned this. You wanted us to attack you. Not wanted. Kane corrected. Expected. We hoped for peaceful contact. We prepared for war. You chose which one we would have. The consul activated his assembly emergency channel. All members respond immediately. We have a crisis situation that requires unanimous decision-making. One by one, the other assembly members appeared on holographic platforms. Scientist Prime Valera's crystalline form pulsed with agitated light. General Kethros looked defeated, his scales dull with stress. Ambassador THYSS's tentacles writhed in her environmental suit. Bioengineer Morpheus had assumed a form that resembled living stone. The assembly was present. Admiral Kane's image expanded to address them all. Members of the Orion Collective Assembly. You invaded human space with the intent to enslave our species. You attacked our colonies. You killed our people. You took our children. Under any reasonable standard, we would be justified in destroying your civilization completely. We could crack your planets. We could exterminate your populations. We could erase the collective from the galaxy as if you had never existed. Ambassador THYSS spoke quickly. But you will not. You are making threats to force negotiation. You will accept reasonable terms and allow us to save face. This is standard diplomatic posturing. Admiral Kane shook his head slowly. You still do not understand. I am not negotiating. I am informing you of what will happen. First, all human prisoners will be released within the next 6 hours. We have strike teams ready to enter every labor facility you possess. If our people are released peacefully, your facilities will not be harmed. If they are not released, we will take them by force and destroy everything in our path. Second, you will pay reparations for the damage done to our colonies and the lives lost. The amount is not negotiable. Third, you will withdraw from human space completely. Fourth, you will sign a non-aggression treaty that establishes permanent boundaries between our territories. General Kethros found his voice. And if we refuse? If we choose to fight despite the odds? Then I will give the order and your home worlds will burn. Kane's voice was absolutely flat. We have weapons in orbit above every major population center in collective space. They are targeted and ready to fire. You have 1 hour to begin releasing prisoners. For every hour after that deadline where our people remain captive, we will destroy one major city on one of your worlds. We will keep destroying cities until all humans are free. Choose quickly. The assembly chamber erupted in chaos. Drajan tried to maintain order but voices overlapped in panic and rage. We cannot surrender to these creatures. Kethros roared. It violates every principle we have built the collective upon. We cannot fight them either. Valera replied with cold logic. Their technology is superior. Their fleet is larger than our intelligence suggested was possible. They hold tactical advantage at every major world we possess. Fighting will result in total defeat. Then we negotiate for better terms. THYSS suggested. We use our diplomatic skills to find compromise that preserves our dignity. There is no negotiation. Morpheus spoke for the first time. His voice was like stone grinding against stone. The humans have planned every scenario. They hold every advantage. They are offering us survival in exchange for surrender. That is more mercy than we showed the species we absorbed. Drajan activated every analytical capability his species possessed. He reviewed tactical data. He examined strategic options. He calculated probability trees for every possible decision. Every path led to the same conclusion. The collective could not win this fight. Humanity had prepared too well. They had developed technology the collective could not match. They had built a fleet the collective could not defeat. They had moved forces into position with such precision that resistance was futile. The only choice was how many collective citizens would die before the inevitable surrender. I am calling a vote. Drajan said heavily. All in favor of accepting human terms and ordering the immediate release of all human prisoners, indicate now. The vote took 30 seconds. It was unanimous. Every member of the assembly understood the reality they faced. Pride was worthless against extinction. Tradition meant nothing if there were no survivors to remember it. The collective had gambled on enslaving humanity and lost completely. Now they would pay the price. Drajan sent the orders personally. Every labor facility holding humans was instructed to release their prisoners immediately. Every collective military force was ordered to stand down and withdraw from human territory. Every government office was told to prepare reparation payment schedules. The mighty Orion Collective was surrendering to a species they had dismissed as primitive just weeks earlier. Across collective space, the releases began. On Velcro's Prime, 342 humans emerged from underground labor facilities where they had been processing rare minerals. They were thin and exhausted but alive. Human transport ships descended to collect them. Collective guards watched in silence as their former prisoners boarded alien vessels. On Ashera Central, 270 humans who had been working in energy collection stations were freed. Children who had been separated from parents were reunited. Families who thought they would never see freedom again wept as human soldiers escorted them to safety. On Zenthari Fortress, 112 humans who had been studying collective military tactics under duress were released. They had been kept in decent conditions but had been prisoners nonetheless. They left without looking back. The liberation continued for 18 hours. Human strike teams moved with surgical precision. They knew exactly where to go because humanity's intelligence network had been tracking every prisoner since the first captures. Advanced reconnaissance that the collective never detected had mapped every facility. Quantum communication systems the collective did not know existed had coordinated the simultaneous operations. When it was over, 4,723 humans had been recovered. Every single person taken by the collective was accounted for. Some had injuries. Some had trauma that would take years to heal. But all of them were free. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship Retribution and watched the final transport ships depart from collective space. Around him, his officers worked quietly. They had executed the largest military operation in human history. They had defeated an empire that had ruled for 8,000 years. They had done it without destroying a single civilian population center. They had shown restraint even in victory. Captain Rodriguez approached with a data pad. All personnel accounted for, sir. All ships reporting ready for next phase operations. Reparation payment schedules have been received from the collective. They are requesting a formal treaty negotiation to establish permanent peace terms. Kane nodded. He was tired. 200 years of preparation had led to 3 weeks of intense combat operations. He had not slept properly in days. But the job was not finished yet. Send a message to the assembly. I will meet with them personally to discuss treaty terms. The location will be neutral space between our territories. They will come unarmed. We will come armed but will not fire unless attacked. Make it clear this is their one opportunity to establish peaceful relations. If they reject this chance, we will consider the collective a permanent hostile force and act accordingly. The message was sent. The response came within an hour. The assembly agreed to meet. 5 days later, a conference station materialized in the neutral zone between human and collective space. It was a temporary structure built by human engineering teams using advanced construction technology. The station had meeting rooms, living quarters for both sides, and enough defensive systems to ensure no one tried anything foolish. Admiral Kane arrived with a small delegation. Commander Vasquez was there, the diplomat who had delivered humanity's first warning. General Sarah Chen commanded the military escort. Ambassador Michael Torres would handle the actual treaty language. They boarded the station and waited. The collective delegation arrived an hour later. All 5 assembly members came personally. Drajan, Valera, Kethros, Thyss, and Morpheus. They looked diminished somehow, as if defeat had physically shrunk them. They entered the conference room where the humans waited. For a long moment, neither side spoke. Then Drajan broke the silence. "We underestimated you. It was a catastrophic failure of intelligence and judgment. We believed our own superiority so completely that we could not see the truth. You have defeated us utterly. We acknowledge this. We come prepared to accept whatever terms you impose." Admiral Kane gestured to seats around the conference table. "Sit. We have much to discuss." The negotiations lasted for 3 days. The treaty that emerged was comprehensive. The collective agreed to pay substantial reparations over a 50-year period. They would withdraw all presence from a neutral zone 500 light-years wide between human and collective territories. They would never again classify any species as servant class without that species' explicit consent. They would submit to monitoring by human observers to ensure compliance. In exchange, humanity agreed not to pursue further military action. They would not demand territory beyond the neutral zone. They would not interfere in collective internal affairs as long as the treaty terms were met. It was not a treaty between equals. It was a treaty between victor and defeated. But it was fair by human standards. On the final day, after the treaty was signed, Consul Drajan asked the question that had troubled him since the first battle. "Why did you show mercy? Your Admiral Kane said you could have destroyed us completely. Why did you not? Why allow us to survive?" Commander Vasquez answered. She had earned the right to speak. "Because we are not you. We do not enslave species because we can. We do not destroy civilizations because they threaten us. We fought because we had to. We won because we were prepared. But we do not seek to become the monsters we defeated. We want peace. We want to explore the galaxy and learn from other species. We want our children to grow up in a universe where strength is not the only thing that matters." Scientist Prime Valera's crystalline form pulsed thoughtfully. "You could have hidden your capabilities forever. You could have remained in your small corner of space and avoided our attention. Why reveal yourselves now?" General Chen smiled slightly. "Because now we can reveal ourselves from a position of strength. Because now when we make peaceful contact with other species, they will know we can defend ourselves. Because now when we explore the galaxy, no one will mistake us for easy prey. We paid a price to teach you this lesson. But the lesson needed to be taught." The collective delegation departed. The conference station was dismantled. Human ships began the long journey back to their home systems. The war that was not quite a war was over. Humanity had won not just a military victory but a strategic one. Word of what happened spread through the galaxy faster than light. The mighty Orion Collective had invaded human space and been crushed. An unknown species had appeared from nowhere with technology that surpassed ancient empires. The humans were not to be trifled with. The humans were dangerous. 6 months later, Admiral Kane stood in his office on Earth and looked at the reports accumulating on his desk. 14 species had requested diplomatic contact with humanity. 8 civilizations had sent scientific delegations wanting to study human technology. 3 governments had asked about establishing trade agreements. Humanity's position in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer isolated. They were no longer unknown. They were a power that others respected and feared. Commander Vasquez entered his office without knocking. She carried a bottle of actual Earth whiskey and 2 glasses. "I thought we should drink to survival," she said. Kane accepted a glass. "What did we learn from all this?" Vasquez considered the question. "We learned that the galaxy is more dangerous than we hoped but that we can face those dangers. We learned that preparation and patience can overcome superior numbers. We learned that showing strength does not require cruelty." She paused. "And we learned that the universe is watching now. Every species out there knows what we did. Some will want to be our friends. Some will want to be our enemies. None of them will ignore us again." They touched glasses. The sound echoed in the quiet office. Outside the window, Earth continued its eternal rotation. Children played in parks. Families gathered for meals. People went about their lives largely unaware of how close they had come to extinction. That was fine. The people in this building and thousands like them across human space had spent 2 centuries making sure ordinary people could live ordinary lives. That was what military forces were supposed to do. Protect the innocent. Preserve the future. Ensure that children could grow up free. The Orion Collective never threatened humanity again. They paid their reparations on schedule. They observed the treaty terms exactly. They even became trading partners after a few years once the wounds began to heal. But they never forgot what happened when they declared humanity slaves. They told the story to every new species they encountered. Be careful who you dismiss as weak. Be cautious who you classify as prey. Some species hide their true capabilities until the moment they are needed. Some species prepare for war while hoping for peace. Humanity was such a species. The galaxy learned this lesson at the collective's expense. 100 years later, historians would write about the collective human conflict as the turning point when humanity emerged as a major galactic power. They would analyze the military tactics and the technological developments. They would study the diplomatic maneuvering and the strategic planning. But the real lesson was simpler. Underestimate humanity at your peril. Threaten human children and face human fury. Declare human slaves and watch human patience transform into human wrath. The galaxy had been warned. The warning had been delivered in fire and steel and absolute victory. No one would forget,